Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. For today's video, I thought I would take another gander at the How I Would series, the second one this month actually, with a look at how I would revamp the Universal movie monsters. This video has actually been inspired by a Facebook group I'm in, one themed around uh, the Sandman graphic novel, which has gone which has gone predictably quiet ever since the Neil Gaiman allegations came out a few weeks ago, as of the time of me filming this video. So yeah, that group might become active soon. In the meantime, but I don't think it will. Even if even if the allegations are revealed to be false and there is no you know uh, uh, legal legal case against Mr. Gaiman, he still what he has done still isn't entirely kosher, and he could probably benefit from you know being less in the being less in the spotlight, keep his head from getting a bit too big. Anyway, now that I'm done addressing that, I'll get back to the topic at hand, which started with a discussion of the Dark Universe and Universal's attempt at a cinematic universe. Because it could be argued they actually had the had the first and one of the most successful so far with their you know universe with their monster movies, to the point that these figures are actually called the Universal movie monsters, and there's a whole canon about them. And there was talk about reviving them, and the group's founder and moderator, Amanda Pike, actually made a suggestion for how she would handle that for how she would handle a potential revival of this shared cinematic universe. My presentation won't really won't really focus on hers, but rather it's me taking the ideas that she presented, and figuring out what else I what else I can what else I can do with them, or how do I take adapting them to what I think would be a more fitting idea. And I think she wanted so that we're all clear on what it is that we're talking about. Amanda herself wanted these movies to have more of a uh, uh, dark romantic angle to them, and have these movie monsters showcased somewhat as somewhat as misunderstood heroes, or morally ambiguous central figures, and establish all of them. Maybe establish all of them in individual movies, and perhaps slowly over time, eventually having them team up for a variety of reasons. The idea behind it is that these characters are immortal, and they have tons of history behind them, tons of events that that would have come about between them, and that is one aspect that she would have wanted to focus on. And she also wanted Guillermo del Toro to to head this project. And I'll be fair to Del Toro and say that he is a good director in general. Like the man won the Academy Award for for both for best director and I think for best picture a few years back. And even beyond that, he has showcased that he has a an extraordinary, not necessarily talent, but or also talent, but I am more precisely referring to his passion, to his interest, to his desire to explore various stories through the cinematic language. So that is obviously the case here. I am not taking anything away from him, but I don't think he is the best director for this kind of a project because, well, to be fair, he already has a very specific. I think he already has a specific idea of who these figures would be, and I don't think his concepts of what these figures ought to be would really mesh with would perhaps really mesh with my idea. So my suggestion for a potential director for the Universal, for a revamped Universal movie monsters, movie monsters world, would instead be someone who is maybe new to directing motion pictures, but would nevertheless still have some kind of history or background in visual arts. Maybe photography, but not photography as in camera work for movies. I'm talking photography as in still images made with cameras. And yes, I'm directly referring to photography rather than paintings because reasons. I think photography allows a little bit more drama and a little bit more and somewhat more deliberate work on composition and dimensionality than something like a painting would, and it would be a skill set that is more easily transferable to the silver screen. Also, I kind of want this new director to be of Asian or East Asian or Southeast Asian descent. Ideally, I would want the next generation Zhang Li to to get their teeth cut on this movie making endeavor. So who are the monsters I want to create this fictional world around? Well, most of them do actually show up within this image right here, but there are a few exceptions. Exception number one, the Bride of Frankenstein. You really need to establish Frankenstein first before you get to the bride. So for this reason, I will not mention her in this in this video. She needs her husband or the first such monster needs to be established first. Also off the list will be the Phantom of the Opera, because his deal isn't really that he's supernatural, but that there are various reasons why the things he's able to do appear supernatural. If I'm to use other examples from horror cinema, he is less Babadook and more Jigsaw. I'm looking more for that Babadook or Hellraiser template. Like an actual monster, not an actual monster, or someone who actually has supernatural abilities rather than someone who fakes having them. For a similar reason, the Invisible Man is also out. While he arguably does, have that supernatural ability of being invisible, his story doesn't really have that level of romance or that dimension of atemporality that I'm looking for within this when coming up with this movie franchise, and because of that, I don't think he is a good enough fit. These others, though, will I think be most appropriate, and I want the tone of this franchise to be somewhat squarely between gothic horror, fairy tales, and melodrama. it really is a it you know it does really focus the really want to focus on the monsters themselves and their experiences, and how all the things around them have shaped them into becoming beings that are uh, completely outside of, maybe not completely outside of our sphere of understanding, but completely outside of our uh, typical experiences. And and for this reason, the five I think I will spotlight are the Mummy, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, and Creature in the Black Lagoon. Anyway, before I start, I do have to issue one final disclaimer in that all of the pictures you're about to see, I claim no ownership of them. Most of them most of them I just have to admit I just used Bing image search uh, and picked up the first pictures I thought would be most appropriate. And a lot of them are from are either from fan wikis or in the public domain, or are stuff like publicity or promotional shoots. Like for example this picture here, which if I'm not mistaken is a poster of the uh, a poster or a cover for the Universal Classic Monsters, either from a marathon or from a DVD collection. With the preamble out of the way, it's time I start where the Dark Universe failed, with The Mummy. The problems with The Mummy, as someone who hasn't actually seen the movie, are pretty much twofold. On the one hand, um, uh, it was excessive, as in people tried to cram in too much, too much preparatory material for future movies. And on the other hand, they really tried too much to bank on uh, uh, on who their main star was, on Tom Cruise, who had had the spotlight over the titular monster. When by comparison, the Mummy trilogy that had Brendan Fraser in it still very much featured the actual mummy itself, and and the threat it presented. And while in the movie itself, that was balanced quite well with while in the movie itself that was balanced quite well with the heroes. When it comes to when it came to the promotion, the focus was, I think, accurately placed on on the mummy, on what it would take to overcome it. And then once people saw the rest of the movie, they were like, okay, there's some interesting stuff going on here. And and for the sake of this movie, and taking into account what Amanda said about about these beings uh, being immortal and immortal, as in cannot die, rather than have no morality, I I really want to dive into each of their origins, so to speak. So for that reason, my pitch for these for these first movies will basically be a set of origin stories. And the first one of these chronologically would be that of the mummy. So what would be my starting point? Imhotep, a historical figure who is a mathematician, an architect, a healer, was in many ways an archetypal scholar of his day, an archetypal scholar of his day, and maybe even for all time. For the sake of this movie, I think he would have or within this movie universe, I think he would have also delved into the mystical arts somewhat, trying to find a way to way to cheat death, and maybe through a variety of experiments, he was able to not only, not only find a way to uh, resurrect people, but maybe also control their bodies after their use, allowing him to, allowing him to assemble more or less an an army of mummies over the course of his lifetime. And that would be pretty much what I think the movie would would focus on him being this fallen genius who has aimed just a little bit too high. Then again, however, the story of this movie wouldn't have him just be taken down by his own creations. I actually want to go a little bit more. I actually want to go a little bit beyond that. I actually want the reason for his downfall to be, to be his uh, connection to Pharaoh, whoever the Pharaoh is at the during his time, because keep in mind that a guy like that would really only be able to gain and keep the knowledge he has by appealing to the court and the royal court of his day, and because of that, he would have a pre-existing relationship with the pharaoh, and would also be able to and would also have the connections necessary in order to conduct the kinds of experiments that I've been talking about. When Pharaoh finds out about his endeavors, he decides to uh, pull the plug on them, and furthermore, decides to destroy his lab to make sure that no one even thinks about attempting anything similar. Uh, Imhotep would have been happy to continue his experiments in secret, but this more direct threat is where he really draws the line and decides that that his cordial relationship with Pharaoh is done. He'll now go all out against him. For those of you who think, wait, that actually kind of sounds familiar, well, you're not alone. I've noticed that similarity myself, and yeah, having Imhotep play more or less a um, an uh, an Orochimaru figure, though perhaps a little bit more, maybe not morally ambiguous, but morally neutral. Someone who generally thinks he is doing the right thing because his understanding his background gives him a certain perspective over life and death. I think that would make him a more interesting, more compelling figure. And then once he sees that understanding is threatened, he lashes out. Obviously, he would lose. However, he would have a backup, and that backup would see would see him being in turn mummified by his by maybe not necessarily by his disciples or whoever is left of his disciples, but maybe directly by his troops, and then he would be somewhat sealed away, waiting for the time when he would have to be called up in order to defend his country. And yeah, that's basically how I see the Mummy. When it comes to and now we go to the next character, Wolfman. When it comes to the Wolfman, there has already been a 2010s movie, or actually directly a 2010 movie called The Wolfman. That kind of that focused somewhat on this kind of character, but more from the perspective of legacy. I want to take somewhat of a different role and explore the connection such a figure would have with with society and with those outside of him. And how do I effectively do that while also within a quasi historical context? because I'm gonna let you on a little secret now. All of the movies I'm about to talk are, have some level of quasi historical context to give each of them their own distinct mythology. So, what distinctive mythology can I tie into the Wolfman? The answer stems from the Dacian wolf. For those of you who don't know, Dacia was a kingdom in European antiquity, conquered by the Romans in the year 106. But before that, they were actually quite influential in the areas north of the Danube, and actually had significant contributions with Rome for the past for the past 150 years up until they were conquered. And I'm thinking this could be an I think this movie could somewhat depict the relationship between could be placed within that backdrop of the relationship between Rome and Dacia. That could just be my creative provincialism coming out, but you know what? Screw it. Uh, that's my take. There are actually two wars between the Kingdom of Dacia and the Roman Empire. One that took place between years 101 and 102, and one that took place between, I'm going to say, 106, 107, or it might be 105, 106. Sorry about that. After which Dacia was conquered. I'm playing around with the idea that maybe the Dacians themselves had potentially had a unit of wolfmen within their army. And I'm not saying that would be the sole reason that that the Romans wouldn't have succeeded, but it would have led to a sizable advantage for them. And these wolfmen, they would be highly respected as warriors. And I'm considering making making the leading figure of these wolfmen be perhaps be Jewish himself, maybe someone who fled after the uh, uh, after the destruction of the Jerusalem temple and the establishment of the Jewish diaspora. And he found himself in Dacia, where as a werewolf or a wolfman, depending on which terminology you want to use, he will have found himself to be widely accepted, given his prowess would be more rewarded. And I wouldn't, and I'm kind of thinking of him being the leader of the Wolfmen, and maybe having a jealous second in command who sees him as a not really Dacian, as being an outsider, and that he should therefore not be involved. There would also be a scene within this movie featuring the Romans themselves, and how they decide to, and how it is that they figure out and decide to counter this more supernatural threat. Because keep in mind, the Romans were very effective organizers, and and they were very effective at taking various technologies, tactics, uh, and logistical solutions, and adopting them and adapting them to suit their needs. So if within this world, if we're having this story take place within a supernatural world, the Romans would also have some kind of supernatural warfare unit, and I think the leader of said supernatural warfare unit would also be would also show up in this movie, potentially as its main antagonist. Maybe he'll mention something about how uh, this struggle to conquer Dacia is like the Egyptian campaign all over again. To which one of his underlings could say, but Egypt became a Roman province over 100 years ago. To which the leader would say, "Yeah, so haven't you heard about immortals before?" That kind of thing. Something to establish that people with supernatural abilities uh, are somewhat common, they are not entirely well known. And I'm thinking that it would be through, and I'm thinking that eventually this unit finds a way to counter to counter the Wolfmen and the effect they have on the front. And I think their actual in would perhaps be that be the second in command of the Wolfman unit, betraying his country in order to gain its supremacy over them, in order to gain its supremacy over the a new over the new Roman client state. Except in his case, he would find out that rather than being the leader of a wolfman unit, he will find that the Dacian wolf will have been will find itself to be entirely eradicated. So, i.e., his entire unit would be taken down because and perhaps the Romans would say something like they have no need for traitors. That being said, uh, I think the leader of the Wolfman unit uh, would not be killed. Instead, he would somehow be kept alive, and maybe he would lose control over his lycanthropy. Because yes, I'm also playing around with the idea that maybe the Wolfmen of the Dacian army would have a way to control when and how when they become wolves, how they become wolves, and they might not entirely be feral beasts when they when they become wolfmen, but are still in control of their faculties and can still develop and follow through with complex strategies. Whether or not that is an ability that is intrinsic to Dacian wolfmen, or if it isn't somehow externally imposed, is something I am yet to figure out. Hopefully, when Universal calls me to tell me that that I have a good idea and they seek to implement it. Anyway, the this this main character, this Jewish wolfman, will still stay alive and will see himself become the last of his kind on two fronts. And he would also inspire, more or less, the myth of the wandering Jew, going from place to place and never finding his own. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of going in some dark places with these movies, but they are, they are the OG horror franchise, so they kind of have to be dark. And now going further along in the future, but still staying more or less within the same geographical area. The next the next monster whose history I want to look into is Dracula. Now, admittedly, there already are tons of iterations of Dracula, to the point where I think he actually is the character who appears in in more movies than literally any other character, something like over 200. And the only other character who even comes close is Sherlock Holmes at 160 or something, if I'm not mistaken. I might be working with old information. So this company is arguably a little bit crowded. So how would I make this iteration of Dracula stand out? Well, I'm gonna do something that again is still somewhat common throughout history, but I will do so in a unique way. Namely, I'm gonna fully lean into exploring the details of his of the actual historical figure he is based upon, Vlad Tepes. aka Vlad the Impaler. Um, now, as I said, there are some movies that touch upon that, but they don't really touch upon. But there are still some areas that I can use in order to make this iteration of Dracula um, maybe not entirely unique, but distinctive. And I'm gonna do that by looking into the fact that the Impaler, as a young boy, was actually fostered with the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, which is something a lot of people are not particularly aware of. For those of you who don't know what fostering is, but have seen Game of Thrones, it's basically why Theon, a Greyjoy, grew up with the Stark family. It's a thing nobles would do. Uh, trade their children so they would be raised at, they would be raised at foreign courts, for a variety of reasons, either as uh, either as a suggestion of peace or as a guarantee of no future war. Uh, anyway, because the Impaler, or Vlad, would be sheltered with the Ottoman Empire, he would have a certain set of experiences that would make him unique. And by that I mean that he would learn alchemy. He could potentially have a fascination with the alchemists of the Ottoman court, and it would be from spending his time with them and joining with their experiments that he would learn and gain the various powers, such as turning into various animals or fogs, or being able to hypnotize people, and gain all of these other abilities that Dracula is typically depicted as having, but most later vampires aren't. So, yeah, that is how I would tackle that topic. However, the movie wouldn't really be about that. It would rather have that that background, or it could do the Batman Begins thing of having the first segment of the movie being about his early life and how it is that he has trained and educated himself into becoming a notable figure. But the thing that would actually put him on the map, and the main conflict that would drive the movie, would actually be the one between Vlad and his brother Radu cel Frumos, aka Radu the Fair, Radu the Beautiful, because I think the because uh, I think these guys would really have somewhat of a feud with regards to who should take the throne, and what makes any of them um, uh, what makes either of them better than the other as a king, uh, uh, as a leader. They would obviously have some engagements with the with foreign powers, and I think 4 times out of 5, Vlad uh, would go for the bloody option, whereas Radu would go for the more diplomatic option, which would place them naturally in conflict, and it would create an interesting juxtaposition of having the audience support the comparatively more brutal figure as opposed to the one who is more diplomatic. Um, Over time, however, I imagine that the audience would perhaps come to question the merits of diplomacy once they find out that uh, Radu was to some extent involved in the uh, incident that led to the that led to the death of his parents, or more precisely, their parents, and which then went on to see him uh, uh, go, which would perhaps go on to see him, become the voivode of Wallachia. Just a potential, just a potential twist into their, to how their narrations could unfold. That being said, throughout this narration, Vlad would not yet be a vampire. He would just have certain features. Vampires might already be known. Within the world, I haven't yet figured that out. But Vlad, nevertheless, would become a vampire by the end of the movie, and maybe even claim a a certain castle as his own. You know which one. And as soon as he does that, Radu decides not to pursue his brother any further, either because either as a last sign of kindness, or because he is legit afraid of what he has seen his brother become, and does not want to get any further involved with that. So he figures going for a containment option is his is his best strategy. Anyway, the next character I want to talk about is the creature from the Black Lagoon. Admittedly, this is the one option I find myself to be less than thrilled with, because I really don't know anything about the creature from the Black Lagoon. It doesn't really have as much of a pop culture footprint as any of the other monsters I'm going to talk about over the course of this video. And therefore it doesn't really give me a lot to work with. So I thought I would stretch my creativity a little bit with this character, and give him another similar role as a somewhat controversial figure within a formerly oppressed culture. And who would that oppressed culture be? Aztecs. I think the creature could perhaps be some kind of either personification or avatar or representative of one of the Aztec gods, and he would be one of many. He would be one of many such creatures or beings that would play a role within this more supernatural or more supernaturally inclined Aztec society. I'm thinking he in particular could be a little bit more of an could perhaps be more of an arrogant warrior type, someone who is absolutely certain of their own mastery, of their own proficiency, and therefore maybe has a little regard for other figures. That is something that could be used to contrast him with the representatives or creations of other gods that would also be involved within within Aztec society. And these figures would be fully challenged when when the Spanish conquistadors show up and end up presenting a challenge for them. One they would be able to stand up against, at least for a while, until the Spaniards find a way to counter all of them, leaving the creature from the Black Lagoon as the last survivor. And yeah, he would, and from that point forward, he would still more or less take on a similar role as maybe other figures so far within this movie world have of being the protectors of being the protector of a specific area. Now that he sees his role being much diminished, he realizes how important other people have actually been towards him, and uh, and when he sees his people uh, fade away, he decides to save or help as many as he can. And this movie would showcase him going from being an arrogant warrior to someone who has eaten humble pie. And fortunately, a heavy enough dollop that it led to everyone around him dying. And last but not least, we've got Frankenstein. With Frankenstein, I actually have a somewhat unique idea. And for the record, I'm now going to refer to the creature, and from now on, I'm going to refer to the creature as Adam and to the creator as Frankenstein. Primarily because those are their names, and second of all because because I think it makes because it helped me present my idea. And my idea is still to have Frankenstein, the creator, being perhaps, and my idea for this is going Gothic, but in a Gothic dark academia. So Frankenstein would basically be this a student who who enters a controversial research program by a borderline abusive professor. Oh, and by the way, I'm talking about a movie that would take place in the 1700s, more or less. So, yeah, any similarity to apparently more common occurrences is an unfortunate consequence. Anyway, as I was saying, Frankenstein is a student under a somewhat abusive scientific mentor. Maybe there are others around him with this program, and maybe he very much plays teacher's pet because the material being talked about is so profoundly interesting to him, and maybe he has such an innate inclination to it that he catches onto it almost immediately, to the point where he disparages the issues anyone else has with the topic. The topic, and the topic, of course, is about maybe not resurrection, but about the activity and the chemical processes related to the human body and human awareness. This would also be more or less be within the beginnings of electricity as it was understood within the as it was from within physics departments around the world. So this level of so more or less this level of cross-pollination between sciences would be would present perhaps would allow for this kind of experimentation that brings this creature to come to life. Anyway, as I said, Victor Frankenstein would be particularly impressed by by these ideas and by this potential, and particularly by how his professor is capable of pushing the envelope. And because of his fascination, he would uh, join his professor in in pushing these envelopes, and maybe even in finding uh, research subjects that might not necessarily be cooperative in an attempt to uh, in an attempt to conduct their experiments. So yeah, this will very much be a villain protagonist story. And however, eventually at one point, the luck of this professor uh, would catch up to him, and the and all of the things that he will have tried will eventually work against him. However, Frankenstein is still loyal to him to a sizable degree. So instead of giving him up, he decides to use his body as the final part of the experiment. Maybe even deciding to bend the professor's will to his the professor's will to his. So yeah, by the way, the professor is now the creature, which I think would be I think is an interesting juxtaposition, and one that I haven't seen done anywhere else. Probably because no probably because no other adaptation has really focused uh, upon Victor Frankenstein as a uh, as a developing figure, or if that was the case, it was it was more of a marginal issue. So so anyway, Victor is able to take his is able to take all of the notes of his mentor and revive him, and then suggest that they continue their experiments. However, uh, the mentor either doesn't want to do it at all, or doesn't want to do it under under Victor's watchful eye, and so they go into and so they uh, more or less go into a battle against each other, and throughout that by the end of that battle, both of them would apparently die. I say apparently because we all know this movie is just meant to establish, uh, Frankenstein's monster, or Adam, as existing. Frankenstein, the creator himself, might still be around. I'm still considering it. However, this movie would not be told from either of their perspectives. Instead, I want it to be told from the perspective of another student attending the lecture. I should have muted my phone. Okay, it's muted now. Anyway, instead, I want this movie to be presented from the perspective of someone else who is attending these lectures, someone who someone who who would have appeared not just throughout this movie but in all other movies, and who will have at various points in time been an Egyptian guard, a Roman legionnaire, a Vatican archivist, a an Ottoman alchemist, and now a paranormal researcher, Abraham Van Helsing. And yeah, I kind of have this idea of the monsters coming together more ad hoc, and Van Helsing, in the future of this series, potentially putting together a sort of horror version of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and it would be within that kind of future movie uh, uh, that this franchise could also explore the ultimate fate of not just Victor Frankenstein, but also have appearances by the Phantom of the Opera, or maybe even the Invisible Man, or other people who use science in dubious ways in order to combat what they see as the macabre and the supernatural. And yeah, that is my take for how I would revamp the cinematic universe of the Universal movie monsters. I very much hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, well then please, like it. Maybe also share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If you have anything to say about the initial wave of Universal monster movies, as well as my presentation for, for a potential relaunch, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then, please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and various other topics, a link to which you can find in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. Additionally, you have the option of supporting me on Patreon, where depending on the level at which you pledge, you will receive various perks, the specifics of which I will allow you to discover for yourselves, if you so choose to. And that was pretty much all I had to say. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.